Hi everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of March the 30th, April the 5th. We have a really powerful and intense sky where the mix of energies are going to feel really chaotic and wild, for we have super intense aspects which certainly promote aggression and unrest, but at the same time we also have an energy of bliss, of faith, of miracles, and it is this mix of the two energies that's going to be felt totally differently by each individual alike. If there was ever a time when the saying that reality is what we make of it is true, then that time is definitely now. We also have two very important energy shifts taking place in the sky where Mars leaves Capricorn, its exalted sign, and enters Aquarius, where it immediately meets with Saturn. Now, this is a rather negative energy, but there is also a positive one where Venus leaves her home sign of Taurus and enters the sign of Gemini. Now, this is really good because Venus in Gemini empowers speech, communication, sharing our thoughts and ideas with others. So, this can promote beauty, optimism, hope, and of course, ultimately, love and compassion. Both of these energy shifts are really important and impactful, but I'll be speaking about them later on in the horoscope. So we start the week with a really powerful celestial dance where Jupiter, the planet of expansion, truth and nobility, meets Pluto at 24 degrees of Capricorn. When Pluto converses with any planet, it absorbs its symbolism, its power, and it adds it to its own. So this is one of the reasons why astrologers think of Pluto as the celestial, the heavenly alchemist. Now this energy is so intense and powerful that I'd find it impossible to attribute a polarity, an emotional charge to it, because on one hand Pluto, as I have written in absolutely each and every one of my horoscopes from the beginning of 2019, it is deconstructing the symbolism of Capricorn, which is usually centralized power, law and order, the government, our social structures, our economic stability, because Capricorn is a earth sign, so it has everything to do with money and stability and permanence, traditions, rigidness, rules, laws, regulations, order. You get the idea. So during this time, whatever Pluto is destined to change, because it means Jupiter, it is expanded by Jupiter, it's going to become visible. This is the first moment when we'll see the very first glimpses of what all this big celestial concentration in the sign of Capricorn has to mean. This is when we get the chance to see the very first signs of how it's gonna manifest both in the present and but also in the future. But at the same time, there is the part of the deal where Pluto actually has to give us the power to reconstruct and change everything, so we can also see what is going to replace the old. How or in which way are we going to reconstruct everything? How are we going to find solutions? How is the new order, the new way that things are going to be playing out, all of this is going to look like? Jupiter has also much to do with the law, justice, legal systems, and we might have the chance to see profound changes and initiatives regarding the legal side of things. This will begin evolution and innovation in its true sense. Another very dual manifestation has to do with the economy, because the old financial structures, customs, traditions, and most importantly, the values are going to crash, and I don't think we can actually prevent this disaster, this fall of the economy. But at the same time, Venus holds a trine with Jupiter. The trine is a celestial conversation of supreme harmony, and here Venus is the symbol of currency. So chances are that this is the moment when cashless society, digital currencies gain a lot of power and influence, but this also means that the crash of the economy from various different perspectives is necessary for this change to occur. Now, for the individual, this is a really, really positive energy where we change our inner values, where the materialism all of a sudden becomes almost irrelevant. I would actually even go as far as saying that more and more people are not just going to change their inner values, but are also going to oppose materialism, greed, the old way of trading, so to speak. In other words, capitalism. This is when the ideological and psychological aspects of this crisis delivers their finishing blows to capitalism, condemning it to a slow and painful death in the most peaceful ways possible, because all of the organizations which hold the power in the present moment are going to lose their support. So many people think of them as slave drivers, but slave drivers are absolutely nothing and worthless if they don't have any slaves. And this is exactly why it's going to be rather peaceful, because there's not going to be any conflict or battle or whatever. People will simply stop believing in them, they will stop selling their time, they will stop selling their skills for money, because they will rather want to live in passion, so they actually love and gain really positive experiences from whatever they're doing or whatever they're skilled at and stuff like that. And this means that change is inevitable. This trine between Venus and Pluto is also really significant because it can change the way we always went about our relationship, romance, love, partnerships, attractions. This is a moment when a person's psychological configuration, their distinctiveness, their personality, their inner values are what we are going to hold as maximum value, as worth, and not really how much money they have in their pockets or what their social influence is. This is also a fated energy because it has much to do with Pluto, and Pluto can control fate. So chances are fated lovers, soulmates, twin flames, whatever you want to call them, are going to find each other and form unbreakable soul level alliances. And even though, most probably under the present circumstances, they won't be able to meet physically, still, the power of love, the unity, is going to reach all-time highs, which can be like a saving grace from an energetic perspective, and they can raise the vibration of the whole world. Right around the time when Mars reaches 29 degrees, called an erratic degree of Capricorn, chances are that things are going to get really intense, because this is a very mixed energy. 29 degrees of any sign is like a karmic degree, where usually the most negative, shadowy representation of the planet's energy is going to be felt. So on one hand, this is definitely going to give a lot of power to the government, because it's happening in Capricorn, where they might make all the restrictions really strict and rather unfair. This can also mean that we're going to lose even those few rights that we still have left. But this can also play out as abuse of power, and this can sometimes mean military action or the military getting involved very up close and personally in all of this inner turmoil. But since this is a karmic degree, it means that every action has a reaction. So this can also empower people, civilians, the individual, to start opposing the laws, the rules, the restrictions of the government. Because just the day after, on the 31st of the month of March, Mars is going to leave Capricorn and enter Aquarius, and here is going to meet Saturn. Now this is going to play out in various different ways, because the meeting of these two planets usually provokes a great discharge of power. And most astrologers, especially in my culture, don't really see the meeting of these two planets with very positive eyes, and I'll tell you exactly why. The ancients believed that Saturn was the great malefic, so sometimes they thought about its powers as evil, or it brings very unpleasant things into existence, while Mars was the lesser malefic, so it was just like Saturn, only that it provoked different negative experiences. And these two power players met in the sky once every 2 years, and usually when they met, conflicts, strife, wars, crises, and very unpleasant manifestations came into reality. So, under the present circumstances, all of us can tell with great ease that this is going to be a moment when the virus gets out of control. Aquarius has much to do with mutation, so it can mutate. And the financial part of things is going to get critical and severe for very, very many people. So this is going to be rather bad news. From a totally different perspective, both planets are going to be squared, aspect of tension, by Uranus. And since Aquarius represents the individual, and Saturn here takes away the power from the authorities because it left Capricorn. When it was in Capricorn, it represented that the power is in the hands of the government. But now in Aquarius, the power is in the hands of individuals, of small groups, the components of society, I mean us, human collectives. So this is the first moment when the population of the planet is going to start opposing all the measures, all the restrictions, and a rather silent war is going to commence. Uranus is the planet of revolution, uprising, so even if this won't play out violently straight away on the 31st, people can, but can also not go out and protest on the streets and stuff like that. But even if it doesn't happen on the 31st, it will happen at the time of the elections because they, as I said earlier, every action has to have a reaction. If the government abuses its power, people are going to punish them one way or another. Maybe physically by going out and protesting, but they can also punish them legally by not voting or demand a massive change at the time when they do vote. Either way, this is going to lead to great social dissatisfaction. Another power player that is going to be in this mix is that right at this time, Eris in Aries, the goddess of discord, also forms a square with Jupiter and Pluto. And when this happens, she usually provokes revolution, anger, civil wars, protests, which can play out either physically or on the internet. Now, of course, there has to be a good side to all of this, and that is that Aquarius rules technology, digitalization, the internet, virtual reality, the future, humanitarianism, solidarity between people despite their differences. So even if Saturn and Mars are making all of the restrictions really severe, felt really heavily by the people, Uranus is still the dominant power here, and it will provide us with massive technological and scientific discoveries, solutions, new ways of fixing things, new ideas, new plans, new visions. All of these are going to come into existence and they will have a massive positive effects because they are going to fix problems. Later on, Mars is going to slowly move further into Aquarius, breaking its connection with Saturn, but at the same time it's going to hold the square with Uranus, and the square is going to get stronger and stronger, being exact on the 6th of April. This is both good and bad because on one hand, this means instant, really quick-paced evolution, progress, where everyone is going to do whatever they can and whatever is needed to help the situation, regardless of citizens, governments, police, whatever, everyone. And Mars is providing the initiative, the courage, while Uranus is the solution. On the other hand, this can also play out as cybernetic warfare, where perhaps the physical virus won't be the biggest problem, because we can see cyber terrorist groups, computer viruses, and anything really that can disrupt or have a very negative effect on the internet. This can also mean that authorities can restrict the freedom of speech and access to the internet, and this can cause even more problems, because citizens are definitely not going to take this. Unfortunately, Uranus being in Taurus also increases the chances of disasters, natural calamities, earthquakes, because these two planets, Uranus and Mars, are the quickest energies of the zodiac. And every time they meet in a square, that usually shakes the earth, either literally or symbolically. Something big usually happens. Last but not least, the power of the square can also create new ideological movements that can give birth to a new form of terrorism which we might have never seen before. Very powerful and relevant truths are going to see daylight, and this will be the beginning of a massive informational and ideological war between old ideologies like Saturn, rules and regulations, the tradition, and new futuristic ones, which is definitely Uranus. Now we finally reach the part of the horoscope where I can give you some really good news, because there's also very positive aspects taking place in the sky. And one of these is around the 4th of the month of April, two very important celestial events take place simultaneously. One of them is Venus entering the sign of Gemini, where she empowers the beauty, passion, power, and psychological influence of communication, speech, thought, and this means that artists, writers, communicators, public speakers, VIPs, stars, and yes, even astrologers, and those who inspire through their speech or writing, regardless of who they are and how they're doing it, are going to gain a very positive influence, and they're going to do everything in their powers to bestow hope, beauty onto the world. This is going to be a moment when we witness the power of affirmations, the power of inspirational, motivational, soul-touching speeches or any other form of communication. At the same time, Mercury meets Neptune in the sign of Pisces, Mercury being the ruler of Gemini, and this represents a spiritual power of music, of the higher self expressing its divinity through sound, lyrics, poetry, art, sound waves, anything that is linked to artistic expression. This can be a moment when all artists around the planet join forces to do everything they can through their talents and skills, through their work, to raise hope, optimism, and ultimately restore faith. From a spiritual perspective, this represents the power of prayer. This represents communicating directly with the mind of God, Source, the Creator, call it whatever you want. So chances are that not only artists are going to be stepping up, but also those who represent the spirits, spiritualists, people of faith, like priests, clerics, mystics, whatever, where along with everyone who joins them, they're going to call in divine intervention. And with Venus trining Saturn at this time, an aspect of supreme harmony, Saturn being the planet of manifestation, this can actually turn into a miracle. For some people, especially those who embody inner truth, who are connected to the spirit, to the source, this can be a really positive, an overwhelmingly positive experience. Now, right around this time, the moon forms minor astrological aspects called quincunxes with a number of different planets, among them Mercury, Jupiter, Neptune, and Pluto. Now, quincunxes can play out either way, because usually they link together two or more different areas of life which apparently have absolutely nothing to do with each other. So they can be either surprises of the pleasant kind or awkward moments, surprises of the unpleasant kind, so to speak. So for some people this will represent moments of maximum shock where something that happens on the world stage will send them into the deepest fears, likes of which they have never ever felt in their lives. But for others, this will be a moment when they witness a miracle. The moon is going to be in the sign of Leo, so this might suggest that either a world leader, a VIP, a really important person, is either going to step down from their position of power, or because Pluto is involved here, this can also represent them passing away, like maybe killed by the virus or something like that. Either way, it can be a moment which can shock all of us, or it could represent a gesture of maximum courage. Maybe a creation of some kind, because Leo represents creativity, creation, the child, so to speak. And for an artist or whatever they create is their child. Or maybe this can be a big risk that someone is going to take, and that risk is going to produce good or bad effects. But either way, it's going to produce very strong and intense and mixed feelings. This could also represent like again Pluto, the assassination of a very important person. But since Jupiter and Mercury are also involved, Jupiter representing the truth and Mercury communication and the media, this could simply be like disclosure of a very, very well guarded or important secret that can change everything. Now, how this exactly manifests cannot be known because this is, after all, a quincunx, so this is the element of surprise. But it's going to cause really intense feelings and a big surprise for everyone, globally, individually, whatever. Even though this doesn't take place next week, I would like to speak about a really, really positive and uplifting aspect that is about to take place in the sky, in which is none other than Venus in Gemini is going to be meeting Vesta, an asteroid, keeper of the sacred flame. Now this is really, really positive because Vesta is our sanctity. Venus in Gemini is the beauty of our communication, our thought, our cerebral activities. So basically, what this represents is thinking sacred divine thoughts and speaking sacred words, all of which can have a massive influence on many, many people, igniting the flames of passion and love in their hearts. This aspect can greatly encourage affirmations like repeating mantras or simply thinking sacred thoughts like inviting the power of the divine to manifest through our thoughts or prayers or anything like that. Another thing that I would also like to mention is that Vesta and Venus in Gemini is a really, really special energy because just think about Gemini. Gemini is the twins in mythology. So one of the twins is a mortal, half god, and the other one of the twins is a divine being, a god. So this means that all of us have a divine counterpart in the infinity of the universe. This can mean the higher self, our divine spark, or whatever. This means our nature. So this is a really, really good energy because we have access to our divinity. We can call upon that divine being who we truly are somewhere in the infinity of the universe or the multiverse or whatever to come and help us, to come and empower us, to act, to manifest, to do whatever they can through our thoughts or maybe our words, our speech, our communication. So this is a really, really good energy that can help everyone cope with isolation or with whatever problems they are facing through these turbulent times. Now, as a conclusion, this week is going to be really, really intense. This is where we get to the point that the future is simply non existent because there's too much chaos here. We cannot foresee a future which is so very, very uncertain. And what this really means is that in order for it to come into reality, in order for a future to exist, we need to create it through our perceptions and through our focus. Energy goes where we put our focus, where we invest our attention. So if there was ever a time when our only job in life, in existence, was to envisage the future, set goals, intentions, priorities, that time is really the present moment. Also, Mercury and Pisces, Mercury meeting with Neptune, represents the power of prayer. It represents the ultimate spiritual power. So this gives us an opportunity to do everything we can spiritually, maybe psychologically, maybe tap into our subconscious to draw in help, not just in our own lives, but in the wholeness of the world. So even though the sky may be somewhat violent, turbulent, in the present moment, the astral storm is just beginning, but at the same time, there is also divine help and chance for miracles written in the stars. So hope is going to be stronger than ever before. There is no need to fear, there is no need to despair, regardless of what happens. the universe still works through us. So, if we are more permissive and connected than ever before, the more we can embrace our divinity and immortality of the soul, and this can be the saving grace, the guiding light that gets us through this horrible dark night of the soul that we're facing collectively. Well, thank you so much for listening. I wish everyone a blessed and safe week. Take care, bye for now.